Good evening. It's Wednesday, January 8th. This is a meeting of the Milford Finance Committee. Let's see. First thing on the agenda is the minutes from the last meeting, which have been circulated. And do I have any motions? Motion by Mike to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Dave Levine. We have 5 people on Zoom tonight. So, okay, starting with Lauren on Zoom. You have to unmute. You want to just give us a thumb up or down?
Yeah, vote like Chucky.
Yeah, vote like Chuck. We can't hear you. Thanks. Brant? Jerry?
Did you dial in the number?
Jerry, we can't hear you.
I don't want to be picky, but did anybody dial this machine in?
Oh, I didn't. I don't usually do it anymore. Hold on a second.
Because the odds on all of them having audio
This is a good point.
I got it.
See, Brownie, you were wrong. He is useful for something.
Maybe I'll have to do a ticket for this, right? Thanks, Tom.
At least he admitted when he was wrong.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound. Enter your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just press pound to continue. You have entered the meeting as a panelist. Attendees can now hear you speak. This meeting is being recorded.
Before you disappear.
Can everybody on Zoom hear us?
We can hear you, we can't see you.
Change that.
Although we can see each other, which is nice, so we're not feeling too lonely.
Leanne didn't put a quarter in the meter.
Hey!
Chris, before you depart tonight, can you confer with Leanne and see if you guys can figure out what the issue was so we don't have a repeat next time? Thank you. Okay, so back to where we were. We were asking for remote votes on the minutes. Lauren?
Yes.
Brant?
Yeah.
Jerry? Bob? Can you hear us, Bob? Is that a thumb up, thumb down? We can't hear you. Just give us a thumb.
Yeah.
Okay, Chuck?
Is this on the minutes?
Yes.
I abstained because they didn't attend that meeting.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Carly just joined. Carly, this is a motion on approving the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, Joyce?
Yes.
Mike? Dave? Okay, so that's unanimous with an abstention of Chuck. Whew.
Off to a good start.
That was a rough one. Invitation to speak. Come on up, Jamie.
Jamie Wheelock from Cunniff Ave in Milford. I'd like to speak about balancing the video interests of Milford's residents with the IT department's interest of additional security cameras across town. As important as security cameras are to IT,
Somebody's making noise online. If whoever that is, if they can mute. Thank you. Go ahead.
as important as security cameras are to IT, I hope the FinCom will recognize that while IT is excellent at advocating for its preferred projects, there is seemingly nobody within Town Hall who is advocating for increasing video recordings of the many town boards whose meetings go unrecorded, like the Water Commissioners, the Conservation Commission, the Sewer Commission, the Parks Commission, the Youth Commission, to name a few. I hope there is a way for FinCom to recognize the video interests of Milford that are underrepresented because there is no leadership for increasing video coverage of municipal meetings. And this may fall slightly outside of your area of responsibility, but possibly the IT subcommittee of FinCom could spend a few minutes trying to understand whether there is ways to increase video recordings of municipal meetings, and especially understanding the limited financial stakes of the whole town budget in these particularly harried times, whether the IT department should get everything it would like when there's lots of known other video issues that we could work on. And if I could have an additional brief minute or two, I'd also like to suggest that the FinCom establish a tax increment financing subcommittee so that FinCom can be in a stronger and better informed position if Milford is presented with a future tax increment finance opportunity. The subcommittee could establish guidelines for high and low discount percentages and the suitability of different industries for worthiness to receive a TIF. Should a multinational billion-dollar biopharmaceutical company receive a TIF? Should a billion-dollar local contracting company receive a TIF? Who is supposed to pay Milford's property taxes? I think our corporate neighbors should be paying their fair share and not riding into town, or some of these outfits are already in town, and requesting TIFs when they're actually financially secure in a way that questions the merit of whether these companies receive a TIF. Also, when anyhow, that's enough. I think you get the point. I would like Town Hall to be in a much better position instead of at the mercy of the Chamber of Commerce representatives who have rolled in here and made grand claims of the urgency of this TIF and the timeline of this project that has to happen, which have proven to not be entirely accurate representations.
All right, let's be careful about open meeting. Did you want to ask a question?
No, I was just going to make a comment.
Go ahead.
The TIFs that we have gone forward with have always been for projects that expand the tax base. We had a company come in. A TIF does not apply, Jamie, you say no, but a TIF does not apply against your current tax rate. So if you're paying $100 today and you're going to add a building that adds $20 worth of taxes, you can get a TIF to push that off, but you don't get a TIF that's retro on your tax rate. You don't get a TIF if you say, I'm going to hire 30 people or 50 people. It's been very clean, and I've always been in favor of clean TIFs. You're going to build a building, I don't care if you stay in town or not. I want you to be successful. But we had a company with a TIF, and after 2 years, they left and went to Florida. They did not take the building with them. And the other thing is, once they left, the TIF was null and void, and the building addition went on to 100% tax rate. So we haven't done what some states have done with corporate welfare.
Okay.
I'd like to just say very, very briefly, TIFs are foregone revenue for the tax stream. They are a tax break for the companies that receive them. It's undisputed that they are tax breaks for the recipients. I'm not going to win this discussion tonight, but I believe it deserves much more conversation when we're not under the pressure of being presented with a TIF.
Brant, it looks like your hand is up.
Yeah, I think it's a great topic to talk about TIFs as they arise. I've been on the FinCom for 2 terms. I'm getting close to the end of it. I've seen 2 TIF requests. I think they were in the same meeting, coincidentally. One, I think the company backed out after town meeting approved. The other one, I think, went through. Are there tips under consideration that are bringing us to the fore that I just haven't seen any in quite some time? I'm just wondering.
All right, I think I'm going to cut it off here.
I was glad to speak.
Only because this is not a topic, but thank you, Jamie. Yeah, we can always put that as an agenda item at another meeting, but I just don't want to go too far astray on invitations to speak. Zach?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What do we got?
Did you receive and forward to the Zoom folks the document I'll be discussing today from Paul?
When did that come?
Probably about right after lunch.
Today?
Yeah.
All right.
Mike's got it.
I'm glad this came up. See, I got this thing I do during the day. It's my job. I'm going to ask that if you guys have anything that you want me to circulate, it's got to be a minimum of 24 hours before a meeting, preferably 48 hours. What's that?
Oh, good.
Okay. But, so I appreciate that, Paul. But just even for purposes, if you want, and I was actually going to ask you about this with Department Head Zach, if anyone wants us to look at materials before a meeting, it is, in my view, unreasonable to send something the day of the meeting and ask people to have read it in advance. So, I don't know if you send notices out to the department heads, but in connection with budget season, there are some things I'd like to ask people to provide everything to us electronically, unless it's voluminous, at least, say, 48 hours before the meeting. That gives people who work an opportunity maybe the night before to take a peek at it. If it's a lot more, if they could send us earlier, but, because I remember last year and the year before getting things 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the night of a meeting. That just doesn't work.
I get it.
But thank you. Okay, I'm
We'll
sorry.
clean that up better for
Chairman,
you.
the only note, when you say if it's not voluminous, if it is, I'd rather have it electronically. I don't want to get 100 pages mailed to me.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess the point is, if they're having trouble disseminating it because of its size, and they want to drop it in our lap the night of, as long as everybody understands it's not going to have been read, right? Yeah, nobody ever mails anything to us, right?
Yeah. And I think you want to avoid the 7 versions, which version is it? Totally get it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll help you with that for sure.
Thank you.
I apologize for the late notice on this.
Okay, so what do we got?
All right, so we're here to talk about the budget process. It's that time of year again. We're in 2025 now, and as you know, we're always working in multiple years. I'm still just a little bit of going on in my office, just so everyone knows. We have a couple audits taking place. There'll be the financial statement audit of fiscal 24, so I still very much remain in 24 and 25, and we're going to be talking about 26. So this is kind of that rare moment of all 3 right now. But we will be turning our attention very heavily towards 2026 and preparing for the May town meeting. As a reminder, our big ticket item we do is the operational budget. That's why we try to push as much capital into October. Other reasons too, but we really need to focus on the operational budget, and that is coming up. So that's going to be the focus of the discussion tonight, and I'm just going to lay out the process of what to expect for the next upcoming Finance Committee meetings, Selectmen meetings, what to expect from the subcommittee, so on and so forth. So if you'd like, I'll get right into it.
Sure, go to it.
Very good, thank you. So we're in January now. We're here talking, but a lot's going to start picking up relatively quickly. It's going to start with, we're going to look to have a chairman meeting, put this in place about maybe not quite 10 years ago, but almost now, and I thought it's quite productive and it works very well. You may say, what's this chairman meeting? So purpose here is to try the best of our abilities to get numerous town fathers, the finance committee on the same page, give some input input on what's important to you guys, what's important to them, and let's develop an overall goals and objectives package to move into not only the operational budget, but the overall funding for what's going to be coming up at the next 2 town meetings in fiscal '26. So I'd like to schedule that sometime next week or the week after. We've talked briefly before the meeting. Select Chair Mike Walsh will be available. It'll be me, you, Town Administrator, Chair of the Select Board, and we'll go through a number of topics. And if everyone has that document, I'm just going to kind of go through some here. Please stop me, ask questions as necessary, but this is nothing new for some of the more tenured members here. So at that meeting, what do? We're going to take a look at the current affairs. We'll be halfway through the current fiscal year. We're going to start there. We're going to look at how is our revenue projections. Are we on point? Were there any surprises? Are there any pivots we need to go to? Are there any good surprises? Well, not all surprises have to be bad. There could be some good ones here. Same approach with departmental expenses. Are we on target? Are there pain points? What's going on? Are there room for improvement? That's one. That's what we'll probably start with. Where are we at? How can we improve? What do we need to do? From there, we're going to start to pull together the preliminary revenue forecast for the following year. So right now, we're in a little bit of a holding pattern. So I don't have a directive, and I'm not going to talk about a directive yet because one of our largest components of revenue is unknown at this time, which is the cherry sheet, AKA state aid. So as a reminder, just to show you the swing that can happen there, we had the Student Opportunity Act that last year was the last year. We had 15% increases, 19% increases in Chapter 70, which is the school funding. Last year, 4. That's huge, huge difference. So if we're coming out expecting 15% increase on $44 million or a 3% increase, that's a big swing. It's not only a big swing for the school department, which many training of thinking may say like that's complete school department, but as you know, we have all these indirect costs that associate with the school department, debt, health insurance, all these other liabilities. So Chapter 70 is not just a school department directive. It will come into our full, what can we do, what should we do, and how can we move forward. So that really is the biggest holding pattern. But, and Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, you've been around the block longer than me, we should expect those first version late January, possibly early February. Anything you want to add to that, Paul?
The governor comes out with
Governor.
their budget, so that would be the state governor one, typically the very end of January.
That point, once that's out, that's our basis. You hear me say all the time that Proposition 2.5 is highly predictable, because it is. 2.5% of what it could have been, and then our little oddball there is what we're going to have for new growth. So that piece pretty easy. Our local receipts, relatively easy. We know the pain points. We know the money makers, the drivers there, relatively easy. That missing piece really is the cherry sheet, and we won't know that till one last time till the end of January. So once we get that together, we will come back and we'll start to develop a real package. I always call it the balance sheet, but it's really the P&L, so you all know that. So that will be coming. But that will also be part of our discussion when we have next week or the following at the chairmanship meeting. What else are we going to talk about that's important? Well, capital has been quite busy, right? So we know we have revised capital plans now. We're going to look and review the schedule of capital requests as submitted for anticipation of inclusion on the warrant. We're going to determine what may need to get kicked back, and that at this point will determine what level we're comfortable with on setting aside funds in the P&L for that purpose. What else are we going to talk about? It's not only capital. frequently we have non-capital items. I'll give you an example. That might be a negotiation of a contract that's been in limbo for a couple of years. Sometimes, as you've seen, that could be a hefty amount. Another example might be looking at our revolving funds that we have. We have compensated absences that we fund every 2 or 3 years when the balance dips low. We'll take a look at that. Is that a goal that we need to do? Should we tuck aside some money for injured on duty funds? Some of these non-capital articles that may come up. A couple other topics we'll discuss. Are there any unplanned financial articles and/or capital? We know emergencies do occur. We do know things pop up, so that'll be a part of our discussion. From there, we will very much try to put together what we want to complete, what's important to them, what's important to us, what's important to me, and we will put together a full package at that point. The last component that we'll discuss, remember, this is all geared at developing a directive for the budget process. The last piece we'll discuss in this chairmanship meeting is going to be what are anticipated already negotiated contract increases. Are we looking at the 2.5%? Are we looking at the 3%? Are there any step changes that will, point being, we don't want to put out a directive of 2%, yet selectmen just negotiated and signed a 3% COLA. Like, obviously, that's not going to work. So a couple of things like that we'll kind of put into the mix, and then from there, we'll kind of steer into what our directive is going to be at the next step. Any questions before I move on to what we expect in February? Okay. At that point, we will have a final budget package developed. There'll be an opportunity to discuss it at the full Finance Committee meeting at the discretion of the chair. There'll be an opportunity in past years we've had, at your discretion, we've had the executive committee come together if you want to talk purely budget. I've seen that happen. I've seen you weren't a huge fan of it. Chris Moran used to do it. Mark Shane used to do it. So we've had the executive committee for budget purposes. Some years, we've had them for other years. Discretion of the chair. You want to do it? I'm there. You don't want to do it? We can do it with the full FinCom. Totally fine. Your discretion. Likewise with the selectmen. I've had roundtable discussions with them. Some years I have not. I've been in front of the full open session Board of Selectmen. I've brought department heads with me. That'll be at the discretion of that chair as well. All preliminary. Now, February, we have the packages out. We distribute them. Our office distributes it out to everybody. We have the budget guideline memo, customized budget input forms, your personal services, documentation, calendars, whole big package. There'll be a memo from myself explaining what is important to us, what the directive is, and we're going to give till March 14th. March 14th, we expect all departments by then have already met with the subcommittees. So I think you're going to have some busy bees going on here. We're going to meet with the subcommittees. You've already had your discussions, feedback, whatever's necessary there. Then everything back to me by March 14th. Now, that doesn't mean that there might be some disagreements. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. At that point, again, kind of discretion of the chair here, in March, get full budgets back. We may want to obtain additional information if it's potentially outside of the budget guidelines, or even if it's within budget guidelines, you may want to bring in department heads to sit here and defend their budget, defend their asks. You may want to do it with the subcommittees. Selectmen may want to call people in and do the same thing at the discretion. We'll see how it goes. All geared towards lining up for the May 2025 annual town meeting, which will happen again in May. So that, in a nutshell, is what to expect over the next few months. I know I summarized it condensely. There's a lot of work here to do that, as we know.
So the budgets are due, they send them to you on March 14, by March 14? Okay. So what can the committees, the subcommittees be doing Are they going to the department heads before they have budgets prepared? And
I'm asking for the March 14th to be like their final.
Their final.
Back to me, I have an expectation that they have met with their finance subcommittee, whether they've reached out or the subcommittee reached out, don't care how that happens, but I have an expectation that that has occurred by then.
Okay, so I would suggest to people, whatever department they have, if they could reach out to their counterpart and say early February, and it sounds like that would be a February undertaking.
Yes.
And then you get it in mid-March, and then we have our little budget
Yeah.
party from mid-March to the end of
Yeah,
April.
I would say from mid-February to that date, so 1 full month is really, and by all means, subcommittees, you could be talking with your departments now and stuff, and some of you may have a tickler of what to expect, but during that 1 month, February 15th to say March 15th there, that month is really where brass tacks is going on, so again, I expect, go ahead.
Real quick, just last year, we sent out the budget packets to all the department heads February 10th, so that'll give them 2 weeks in February, 2 weeks in March, at least your teams to connect. So that should give you 4 weeks. But by the end of the first week of February, all department heads will have their budget packets in their possession. At that point, they should be reaching out to
By
you.
the first week of February?
Yes, by the end of that week.
Okay.
I actually have it predated for the 9th. I'm sorry, the 7th, which is the end of the first week of February, so.
Okay.
Which is why it would be important and ideal if we could indeed meet next week sometime. That would be great. Sure.
David?
You might have alluded to this, but I'm just trying to follow the process here. In January, the chairman of the FinCom is involved with the selectmen, or the select board. Does it drop off from there and now it's at the discretion at any meetings? Because I'm thinking of, I think if we create more synergies between, and this is through the chairman, if we create more synergies between the chairman of the FinCom and then the select board be the chairman of everybody, just so everybody understands that we're all on the same page on what the FinCom is thinking and what the select board is thinking, so that way we can at least have, a discussion over the budget as a whole, holistically, right? Because to me, I don't know if that ever has happened or not, that everybody's on the same page is trying to say, okay, this is what we think that, the budget should look like, and they think the budget should look like Y, we think it should look like X. How do we get our point across other than them watching the meetings or anything like that?
Well, I'll say right out of the gate, it's very seldom everyone's on the same page, so I don't expect that. And that's not what I said either. I was saying, like, it's an opportunity to pitch what's important. And it's not, when I say the chairman meeting, it's the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, just the chair, not the full Board of Selectmen. So we're just going to have, it doesn't have to be posted, it's just the chair, it's me and the town administrator.
But that's in January, right?
It's in January.
And then the whole process goes through March.
Yes.
What happens between February and March, between any synergies between the FinCom and the Board and the Select Board? Anything?
It's up to you guys, I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. So we could.
We meet with the select board to go over that, and then we meet here. But then again, that's your end of it. That's between the,
I just thought it would be a good
a
idea.
lot of that
somehow.
gets ironed out at the chairman's meeting.
The select board,
Yes, Paul?
yeah, the select board has jurisdiction over so many of the departments within the town.
Right.
And it's up to them to really review those budgets and approve them before they're submitted to the finance committee.
Yeah, that's an excellent point that
But
I
that's not all-
neglected to
That's
say.
not all departments, because we have elected
Yeah.
officials that oversee other departments. So they oversee a small part of the total
But that's-
town budget.
But that's my point, though, because I think what happened last year was they approved a lot of the budgets before even we got to approve it, right?
And we don't.
Ultimately, town meeting approves them.
Well, no, I understand
Yes.
that, but they approved it. They approved it to go to town meeting then.
Yes.
But why can't? So what's the opportunity for us to say, hey, maybe not, or I mean, I don't know if those things ever come up or not, but. I mean, they've approved it, so why are we even looking at it if they approved it already? I mean, what's our objective?
Well, one at a time. we're the advisory board
Yes.
to
Yeah.
town meeting. We have the ability to make recommendations irrespective of whatever budgets the select board has authorized. And we have an opportunity to work with departments when they come in here to try to reach agreements as to appropriate budget levels, which we've done in the past, right?
All right.
Yeah, two polar opposite examples. It could be they completely approve something and you advise town meeting, you do not approve that. You tell them
Right,
something
right.
different. Or it could be, hey, yeah, we are on the same page. this time.
It would be nice if we could like bridge that gap before.
It would be nice. Not on every one of them.
Phil?
I think the key is you got to remember that the elected officials all have the same level. The select board cannot tell another elected official yes or no to their budget. So highway, elected official. Scotty has the same rights as the select board. School, I mean, the school's 60% of our budget. So you got to look at these, I don't want to call them fiefdoms, but these departments that are elected official run, they're on their own. We've been the glue that kind of puts it together. You know, like when we went to the school committee and said, I know you've been used to 15%, 18%. And the school committee came back to us and said, we're going to ask for 7.5, was their original, and we said, close. We said 6.5. We're just suggesting, the school committee can tell us to go take a long walk on a short pier.
That's right. Elected.
The elected officials are the same level.
But somebody has to put it all together, right, which is where we come in.
So the Finance Committee has the responsibility to present a balanced budget to town meeting.
Yes.
And then anyone else can say something differently, but the Finance Committee is going ahead with what their recommendation is, and anybody else at town meeting can say, including department heads, can say they agree or disagree, or want to add or subtract something.
So,
But as part of that advisory position, the FinCom still has the legal right to inspect the books of every town department
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
by law.
Absolutely.
absolutely, yeah. But if we're just taking an advisory role, how are we at the same time the ones responsible for creating the final budget? Because the authority to create the budget is really the authority to say yes, no, yes, no.
We're not. The town meeting is...
But you have to bring it to them in the
Yes.
first instance.
That's-
You're
our job
presenting
is
to
to
town
bring them a
meeting,
proposal.
advising of a balanced budget.
Right.
Yes,
But town meeting doesn't have to listen to us.
exactly.
No question about
And,
that.
you know, you can have a resident get up and remove a line, make a motion and remove a line item. We've had that in the
We've
past.
seen that multiple times, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we are the most influential, powerless group. We have one vote. You get to vote. One vote out of 200 and how many?
Okay. Anything else you want to talk about, Zach?
No, answer further questions if you have.
Tom, do you have anything?
No, we're good.
Okay. Anyone on Zoom have any questions? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll be back.
Lauren said that she had to leave at 8. As I understand it, Chris George would like to address us on CCTV, even though the capital meeting hasn't happened yet, and you may have an operating question you want to talk about. If it's okay with you, Chris, I'd like to defer you to the end, just because I want to make sure I get through this next item so Lauren can participate. So this is the bylaw issue. Everyone received something from me yesterday. So let me just spend a few minutes on the genesis of this. There's a town meeting in May. As you all recall, there was a dispute over countryside funding. The Finance Committee opposed the requested financing. The 3 select board members supported the financing. The finance committee's position prevailed, and the financing was defeated. 3 or 4 weeks later, the select board had a meeting to consider nominations. The finance committee had 2 vacancies, 3 after Mr. Moran left. We made some suggestions on filling the vacancies. I watched the meeting that night, and basically the upshot was that the select board said, well, we think maybe the finance committee is too big. They're a little unruly. Let's see what happens. I don't know if there's any connection in the timing of those 2 events. I'm not sure it matters. But I was a little surprised at what I heard at the select board meeting. I reached out to the select board members individually. I asked on multiple occasions for a meeting to try to address any issues that they had. Bob DeVita can attest that he requested a meeting in October. Al offered to participate in a meeting. I've been requesting meetings since June. It's January, and there has been no meeting. I have multiple questions. What do they consider the appropriate size of the Finance Committee? What are the standards for appointment and reappointment of individuals? What role do they consider the Finance Committee to have in recommendation process, et cetera? I have not received any input on any of those and what their plans are. So after 7 months, I concluded that I needed to look at this issue myself, which I have done, probably about 20 hours worth of work myself over the past couple of weeks, running all of these issues to ground. So let's go through the issues and the basis for what I've proposed. First of all, the current bylaw says that we're supposed to be 15 members. If there's a vacancy, the vacancy shall be filled by the select board. We have not been 15 for probably 3 years. The select board is in ongoing violation of the bylaw. If you don't like a bylaw, I think you have to either amend the bylaw or abide by the bylaw. I don't think you can just disregard the bylaw and not appoint people and let the committee size whittle down. So that is a problem. We have to establish a committee size that town meeting approves and ensure that that committee size remains the same. The appointment and reappointment process is completely opaque to me. We've only had 1 person not reappointed in the last 4 or 5 years that I can recall, and frankly, I thought that person was one of the better members of the Finance Committee, and I'm not aware of any reason why that person was not reappointed. So that's a concern. And again, the fact that I have not been able to get anyone to speak to me for several months led me to conclude that we needed to undertake this independently. So what did I do? First thing I did is I did a multi-town investigation of Finance Committee sizes. And I determined that Milford is definitely on the high end of size. I'm not sure why we're picking on Finance Committee sizes right now, but that's fine. I am proposing that we go from 15 members to 11. We have 12 right now. The bylaw would allow us to stay at 12 until someone else steps down, so that we're at 11, but the permanent size would be 11, which would still put us on the higher side, but closer to in line with what I see in comparable communities. I want this entire bylaw to be eminently reasonable when it gets reviewed by town meeting. So that's why, even though it may not be in our best interest, I would propose that we reduce it long-term to 11 members. The second issue is who appoints the Finance Committee members. I'm proposing that we switch from the Select Board to the moderator, and I'll explain why. I'm looking at the State Finance Committee handbook. State Finance Committee handbook really analogizes the Select Board to the executive branch of government, kind of like the president or the governor, and analogizes town meeting to the legislative branch, like your legislature or Congress. And the Finance Committee is considered to be an advisor to the legislative branch. The moderator is considered the representative of the legislative branch. The State Finance Committee handbook says, quote, most finance committees in Massachusetts are appointed by the town moderator, an official of the legislative body, town meeting. I then consulted with Town Meeting Time, which is the parliamentary journal that covers multiple states, including Massachusetts. It says, keep in mind, we have 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts. The Finance Committee is elected in about 27 Massachusetts towns. In a few of them, it is appointed by other town officers, and in the great majority of them, it is appointed by the moderator. So, as you can see, there is overwhelming authority for the moderator to be the appointing body. Is putting us more closely in line with the town meeting, which is the group that we represent. Now, the third and fourth items that I've included in the bylaw, number one, in order to avoid the repetition of vacancies going unfilled, I have proposed that if the moderator does not fill a vacancy within 90 days, the executive subcommittee of the Finance Committee can perform the filling of the vacancy. So we will no longer have issues of spots remaining open for years. And the last issue is the right of making recommendations that the moderator will be responsible for reviewing the recommendations of the Finance Committee. Now, some people may say, well, shouldn't we have a right of approval of the moderator's selections? My concern with that is I don't want it to be seen as the Finance Committee effectively having a veto to control its own committee. I think that might be considered a little bit too insular. And just like the issue with voluntarily reducing the size, I think that we should do things that we believe will gather a large amount of majority support and is considered fair. And so for that reason, I think it might be a little bit of an overreach. Now, on the other hand, some people may say, well, we're putting the power in the hands of the moderator. That's one person. Do we have any concerns about that? Well, yes, I do have concerns about that. And obviously, we're not talking about current moderators. We're trying to create a solution here that will go long term. So I do have a little bit of concern about that. But what I hearken back to is that this is what's done in the majority of towns. I'd like to start with a clean slate and think that we can work with the moderator. If something surprising went on and the moderator we thought was acting arbitrarily or unfairly, there are other options that we could pursue. We could ask for nomination committees to be established by town meeting or other forms of relief. I'd prefer not to start adding ornaments to this Christmas tree and complicating it right now without a problem having been established. Having looked at the majority of towns doing it this way, if we cannot work with a town moderator, then, it's an unfortunate commentary on the town of Milford that I hope we don't get to that point. But I do think that this more closely aligns the duties of the Finance Committee with the respective authorities granted to all the governing bodies in Milford. And, as I sat and thought about this Monday night, we've had a lot of rockiness in our relationships with the Select Board and the Finance Committee over the years. And, you know, sometimes it's been better than others. But there may be something in this current setup that is facilitating the problem. When you think about the Select Board, I mean, they have their lawyers, they have their accountants, so they may not see the need for us as much as town meeting. What does town meeting have? Well, town meeting has us. And so, you know, I think that that may be part of the friction. You know, someone on the Finance Committee had said to me recently, well, he considers ourselves kind of like the internal affairs people in the police department. And I don't know if I'd quite see it the same way, but I think there may be a little bit of truth to that. We are an investigative body and a watchdog, and we may be creating a sort of a perverse situation where we're being appointed by the groups that we're supposed to be reviewing and serving as a check and balance on. So there may be something fundamentally that doesn't work about that. And I can tell you in the surrounding towns that I've looked at, the number that I saw where the Select Board was the sole appointing authority for the Finance Committee was 0. So, you know, we need to keep this professional, and, you know, I don't want there to be any individual attacks. I'm trying to stick to the facts and trying to find a solution that I think will hopefully be a long-term solution. We obviously have multiple problems with the current situation. I have tried my best to try to work things out cooperatively, but you know, I've laid out the facts for you. So, with all of that having been said, I'm going to stop here and let anyone chime in.
Carly has her hand up.
Carly has her hand up. Yes, Carly.
Can I ask a quick clarifying question, please?
Sure.
In the research that you did, which is super helpful, in the towns where it is moderator appointed, does the moderator appoint anything else in that town, or is it just the Finance Committee?
I'll be honest, I didn't look in that much detail, Carly. It's a fair question, but it seems like an agency that's working for town meeting would be the more logical choice for the moderator, but I don't know if that would expand beyond the Finance Committee.
Okay, I was just curious if other towns would, if this went forward, we'd obviously have a disparity on how things in town were being appointed. I was curious if those other towns also had that same disparity.
Yeah, I did not add that to my research list. I'm sorry, but.
That's okay, thank you.
Mike.
In your research, your extensive research here, did you come across a precedent for the 90-day switch from moderator to exec subcommittee or exec committee in making appointments, or was that?
There was one, well, actually, I had thought of it myself, and then I found a town that did it, so I said, oh, okay, I'm not alone.
There is a precedent.
There is a precedent. And actually, I think that town was 45 days, so I think we're being generous at 90. Let's see. Bob DeVita. I'm sorry, we can't hear you, Bob.
We can't control his audio from here, so.
Yeah, Bob, there must be a problem with your audio. We did hear Carly, so I don't think it's our Zoom, but.
Doesn't look like the unmute button, right? Because it's not showing up.
I'm sorry, Bob. We're
Oh, wait, no.
Why don't you try now, Bob? You want to try taking the headphones off, Bob, and see if that works?
No, he has headphones.
He has headphones, but there's no
He doesn't have a
microphone.
microphone.
Yes, on the microphone.
Yeah.
Who's the IT person, David?
Bobby,
I don't know if you can hear me, Mr. Chairman.
Now we can. Now we can. There you go.
Can you-
Now we can hear you, Bob.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Yes.
He can't hear us.
No, put him back on.
We can hear you, Bob.
You gotta take them off.
Take your headphones off, Bob. Whatever you were doing a minute ago worked.
Okay, I'm unmuted, so I don't know what the issue is, to be honest. You can hear you now.
We can hear you. Yeah, it's the headset. It's the headset, Bob, so we can hear you now.
He froze. He can't hear us, so.
Hello?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Hello?
It's intermittent.
Yeah, it's in and out, Bob.
Well, I have a microphone.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Hello?
He doesn't have speakers. Oh, he doesn't have it set up for us to come on.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. I'm going to try. We can hear you.
Go ahead,
My
Bob.
comment would be simply this. I think that you have done an excellent job as this chief limit. Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right. Hello?
We can hear you. Keep talking.
Okay, I would just like to say that, Mr. Chairman, you've done an excellent job of outlining what is obviously a problem. Okay, thanks. Can you hear me now?
Well, you're in and out. I think you got to get one of your
I can hear you.
you got to
I can hear you.
you got to get one of your kids
I
to
can hear
improve your IT down
I
there.
want to watch fellow Zoomers to see if they can hear him.
Well,
Watch fellow Zoomers to see if
Let me
they
try
can hear
that.
you.
Because they were giving him the thumbs up when they could hear him.
okay, I'm back then.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Bob.
I can hear you fine.
Well, we just heard that last statement, fine. If you want to make one more shot, just keep talking. Don't stop until you're done.
Nope.
My comment is that I think you have done a terrific job of outlining what is obviously a problem that requires attention and needs to be rectified. I also think that you prepared a wonderful solution to that problem.
Gone.
He's gone.
Wow. Okay. Well, we got little snippets.
That was good. You did great.
I can go pick him up if you want.
In Florida.
Florida?
Oh, he's in Florida? Oh, that's
Very close to Florida.
Yeah, that explains it.
Okay, so I don't see any questions on Zoom. Anybody here want to talk? David?
Just two questions. One is, this obviously does need a vote from the committee to go forward?
Oh, thank you for raising that question. I would suggest, in the first instance, that this be treated as a citizen's petition, which ensures by statute that it gets put on the warrant. That requires 10 citizens' signature. I'd obviously like to be able to say that the Finance Committee is also, sponsoring it.
And the other one, you might have said this, but I'm not quite sure, is a moderator on board, or is the moderator, are we going?
I don't think the moderator gets to choose. This is a bylaw that would go beyond the current moderator, right? This is.
Oh, beyond the current moderator?
This would be a change in the town bylaw, right? In perpetuity until it gets addressed at some other time.
So if we push this to the end, if it passes, the moderator has no choice to yay or nay it. That's-
Yeah, you can't go into the bylaws and say, I don't want this, right?
All right, thank you.
Paul?
Yeah, sometimes they appoint people to ad hoc committees and things like that. Some to be appointed, two by the select board, two by the moderator, two by whatever it is. So in the past, I don't know anything off the top of my head, but that's not that unusual.
The moderator could establish an ad hoc committee. That's correct.
Police chief search committee, things like that. They may appoint people.
Let's see. Lauren.
Yeah, I have to leave soon, but I did just want to make a couple of quick comments. I'm very impressed with the work you put into this. I agree that, bylaws are there for a reason, and if they're not going to be followed, then they should be amended. I think the last thing that you said was the most compelling thing to me in terms of if, for the sake of argument, the FinCom is internal affairs, then it makes sense that somebody other than the select board should be the appointing authority. And if other towns are using the moderator, and it seems like it's overwhelmingly the majority situation, then why would we not follow suit? So I would make a motion, unless there's further discussion, to just go forward with this.
Okay, so there's a motion by Lauren. Is there any further discussion, or is there a second?
Is the motion to have it as a citizen?
So this would be a motion for the Finance Committee to support this as an article that I would, as I mentioned earlier, as a belt and suspenders, that we would treat it as a citizen's petition. But for tonight's, so people will be doing double duty. They can sign the citizen's petition, but for tonight's purposes, this is Finance Committee support for the proposed article.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, you're back.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. So in your absence, Lauren just made a motion to adopt the article, but since you had your technical difficulties, Bob, go ahead if you'd like to speak further.
Well, I had a question. As I said, I'll just reiterate real quick. You obviously have done a superb job of outlining the problem that needs addressing, and you've done an excellent job of preparing what I think is a very amicable way to resolve that issue. That said, my question is there any feeling, as far as the committee is concerned, to sit, or at least attempt to sit with the selectmen to discuss this prior to putting it on the warrant for town meeting?
Well, I can only speak for myself as far as attempting to meet. That has been the last 7 months. I assume that they will not support a change in appointing authority. So I don't know what purpose would be served unless we were going to go back to the existing system. I've expressed my views on the existing system, but I'll open it up to the group. Go ahead.
I just think this meeting itself is going to create the dialogue.
Chairman?
It's going to be the impetus for the dialogue.
I'm sorry. Who's speaking?
Me, Jerry.
Oh, Jerry. Yes, go ahead, Jerry.
How you doing? I think your proposal looks good, but I think failure to bring the select board in on the discussion might want to be further considered, because I'm not sure that they're aware that this is coming. This kind of proposal has failed in the past. So I know other towns are using the moderator, but that puts a lot of the authority and pressure on the moderator. And I'm not quite totally comfortable with that. I really think I'd be more comfortable if the Finance Committee, in and of itself, reviewed the qualified applicants and made a recommendation to the moderator, rather than. But I really think that somehow or another, if you even have to put it as an agenda item on the next meeting, and invite the Board of Selectmen or their representative to the meeting to discuss the proposal, I think it would be more appropriate, or at least give them an opportunity to make a comment one way or the other.
Well, on the us reviewing candidates and making recommendations, that is specifically in the proposed bylaw. I know the select board is aware that this is on for tonight, and no one is here, but beyond that, I'm just going to open it up. Mike?
There's nothing here that would prohibit the moderator from discussing potential candidates with the FinCom, is there? Even though he has the final decision, but there's nothing that prohibits pre-decision discussions.
Well, not only that, but it requires them to consider our recommendations.
It's in there? Okay.
Yeah. Hold on.
That's all. Just, I think we're probably better off deferring this till the February meeting with an official invitation to the Board of Selectmen to review it. And I just, it's not going to hurt. It's not going to, you're in January now. It wouldn't hurt to have February with it on the agenda and let them know in advance. And then all three of the select board can show up, none can show up, or one can show up. At least you made a good faith attempt to review with it and fix the problem. Okay, because I know you indicated that you have tried to communicate with them. But I think if the whole board, the remaining, 11 or 12 members now, says we're going to invite you to a meeting to discuss a change in the bylaw, I think it would be the wise thing to do at this point.
What's the pleasure of the group?
We have a motion.
I'm willing to withdraw my motion and support Jerry.
Thank you, Lauren.
You're welcome. I have to go.
I mean, there's nothing to be gained by ramrodding this through. It only is going to potentially create more friction with the Board of Selectmen, and I think we need to send a signal that we are willing to cooperate, but we also need them to come to the table to cooperate. If we put it as an agenda item, and I'd recommend that it be the first item, so it's not late at night, that we want to talk about this situation with regard to the size of the FinCom and the representation and who has the appointing authority. I know Mr. DeVita said he was very, very pleased with your work, but I also know that Mr. DeVita had been a part of the FinCom when the FinCom had an integral part of selecting FinCom members. Because I remember the intense review process that I went through of Jack Tennero, Bob DeVita, well, not maybe even Phil McCauley, before I was selected for the FinCom, and that's a long time ago. So it wasn't just a political appointee. You had to come before the interview process and demonstrate an interest, a background, as to why you should be appointed to the Board of Selectmen in front of the full FinCom committee. And I happen to like that.
Well, I just want to address that, Jerry. You do understand that this proposed bylaw gives us two things that we do not currently have.
Okay. But we don't have the authority to say yes or no.
We don't.
Under the old authority, when a member resigned prior to the completion of their term, the Finance Committee had the appointing authority to reappoint that person.
I understand,
okay.
And that right was surrendered in 2011, and I'd be very
It was surrendered. I don't know if it was surrendered. It was, I don't know. I'd ask, I don't know if Bob DeVita can even hear me, but Mr. DeVita and Mr. Mislovich, Charles Chuck, are the only other members that were on the committee during that time that are currently at this meeting right now. No, I don't think anybody in the room wasn't there when we used to actually select our replacing our own member.
No, I understand, but are you suggesting, Jerry, that the Select Board is going to now allow that to be resumed?
I don't know. I haven't had a significant conversation with any member of the Board of Selectmen about changes in the size of the finance. I've had passing conversations, okay? Most of them have been pretty congenial. And I always use the example that the reason why we have 15 members is to get a broad representation of what the town needs as far as spending, budget, tax bills, considerations, taxes and taxes and taxes. It's not just a small group of people that get together and decide that my tax bill is going to go up next week because some department head wants to hire 4 new members to their staff. It requires a whole lot more. I've been on this committee for over 40 years. I know Mr. DeVita's been on the committee for a long time. And I think the biggest challenge the Finance Committee has is finding people that are, number one, qualified, and number two, that want to serve and do the job of being a Finance Committee member. And I'm just, it's not without significant commitment and without significant work. You just can't show up at a meeting and start to read the report. It requires some significant preparation. So that being said, I think it's important to find out what the selectmen are thinking. And I think it's best to bring them in, invite them in. They don't have to show, but if they don't show in February, when we ask them to as we get ready for the next town meeting, then I would be 100% supportive of your article to move forward if they don't show.
David.
So, I agree that we need to meet with the select board, but I don't think this is the right forum for it. I say, my suggestion is to put the motion back on the table, put the second back on the table, vote for it, and then through the chairmans, do their own meeting together just to resolve any differences, to say, what they're thinking of is one-on-one, rather than coming in front of the full committee and then talking about it. Because I just don't think that the temperature is right to have it this forum for that type of meeting. So I said, then if things could be hashed out and with the people, then we can then drop the motion and we can not go forward with the petition.
Chairman?
That's my suggestion.
I believe what you're describing would be our chairman would have to go to a Board of Selectmen meeting to present this to them for discussion. If they were to come here, first of all, the 3 of them would not come to this because that triggers their own meeting.
Right.
And they won't do that. So there's going to be one person come here from the Select Board, and they're not going to represent the rest of the Select Board in any kind of discussion. So either we proceed pretty much with what Lauren had proposed there and unfortunately withdrew it, or we defer to have our chairman go to the Select Board and have a discussion, public discussion during one of their regular meetings.
Okay, I have no desire to attempt to raise this issue yet again. Has everyone heard what I've said since June? I've been asking members of the Select Board, tell me what is going to be different.
I think this meeting is going to create an impetus for them to come forward, or someone from the Select Board to come forward.
I think this meeting, once they find out that this has actually been discussed in a full FinCom meeting, I think it will motivate them to become more concerned about what's going on here. Because to be quite honest, this is a bylaw change. This doesn't just go to town meeting and get passed. This has considerable amount of work to be done yet, and then you still got to get it on town meeting, okay? And then you got to get the town meeting members, okay? I've been there. I've done this before. This was tried once before, and this is no easy task. I really think that we need to work on fixing what we have. And if you don't want to have a discussion with them, I'll have a discussion with them one-on-one.
Can you tell me, Jerry, can you tell me what your proposed, all right, can you tell me what your proposed fix is?
Number one, let's find out what's on the mind of the Board of Selectmen. Okay? I don't believe, and I've been on this committee as long as anybody in the room, except for Charles, that this board is an advisory board, okay? We need to stop using that term. This board is not an advisory board. Our job is to propose a budget, take all the inputs, and submit it to town meeting. And then it's up to town meeting. So I think we've kind of lost track of where we are and where we're going. okay? And we need to step back and say what has been working. And again, I think to do this void of the selectmen's involvement, it's not going to be a pleasant experience. It's not going to be a good experience for the FinCom. And I think that working with the Board of Selectmen in the spirit of cooperation to come up with a solution, okay? Maybe they'll come to the meeting, they'll send their representative to the meeting and say, you know, we agree with 11 members, and we would agree to the Finance Committee doing the interviews and making the recommendations, and we'll make the approval. You send us 2 candidates, and we'll decide which one of the candidates best suits the need of the town. But right now, I think that we need to do a little legwork, little cooperative legwork.
Mr. Chairman, in the spirit of determining what the pleasure is of the Finance Committee at this point, I would like to make a motion that we vote to support your efforts in proposing this bylaw change. Correction in my wording wherever necessary.
I'm not really sure what that means, Mike. Go ahead.
Voting the same as Lauren had voted.
So the only question, I'd like to support it as well, but the only question I have is, does it need to go through legal counsel? Did it go through legal counsel?
I took the language from Article 15 of the 2011 town meeting warrant, where the Select Board was trying to reduce our size from 15 to 11. And I sent the reference out last night to everyone, and if you look at Article 15 from the 2011 warrant, you will see that most of the language is nearly identical, except where I've made the changes. So I think the answer to that, David, is no.
Okay, so I'll second his motion if it's fine as is.
Well, I couldn't hear what he said. Second the motion, if what?
If it's acceptable.
The motion is made to...
You have a motion and a second.
I don't know what the motion is, but...
I don't either.
Well,
not gonna...
Are you submitting this as a citizen petition for the bylaw?
Well, it would be a citizen's petition, which I'd like to be sponsored by the Finance Committee.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that the FinCom sponsor, is that the right word?
Yes.
Sponsor your citizen position on submitting this bylaw change.
Okay. My own view is, if this gets approved, it could always be revoked at a later meeting if we decided that there was something agreeable otherwise.
Exactly.
But if we do nothing,
That's my point.
then we are where we've been since June.
We just need to move forward, and then that's what
I really believe you need to get the input of the select board.
We will.
As to what their feelings are.
We will get the input.
Yeah, your input
And
is...
if you don't, and you end up in a disastrous egg all over your face, okay, so be it. If you do, and you lose, then at least you had the... Right now, we don't know I don't know what they're thinking.
Carly?
Okay, I've had...
Go ahead.
Can I just, and this might be out of turn on the open meeting question, whatever, I just want to ask a point of clarification. If you just said we could do this and then revoke it, I am agreeing with Jerry in terms of I think we need to have another conversation before we do it. I'm not disagreeing with doing it, but I do agree. I think I'm now confused on what the actual data point problems are, and I would actually like to suggest if we do have a meeting, we speak in facts, no personalities. What's the problem? How do we solve it? What's the next problem? How do we solve it?
Yeah, thank you. I've seen these things go sideways many, many times because we don't ask, what is your opinion going forward? If we ask for their opinion and we don't agree, then that's a different
Well, Jerry,
situation.
look, if the pleasure of the group is to suspend this so that we can talk to the Select Board, we'll come to that resolution. But for you to say we need to ask for their opinion, in my opinion, is a little bit ridiculous. I have been asking for their opinion since June, Jerry. I've got nothing on anything.
I've asked their opinion on one-on-one, and I've gotten some feedback that I wasn't particularly impressed with, but I also took it to heart that maybe there is a compromise somewhere in the middle, and that we need to find a compromise that gets this finance committee back in the position that it was 10, 12, 15 years ago. There used to be a time when the finance committee spoke. There was no question in town meeting as to what was going to happen. Now we have all this controversy about this, that, and that. And I think as we move forward with some of the spending and capital plans going forward, I really think the committee needs to just kind of like step in, find its place, and really take charge kind of command of the situation. I mean, what's the budget? $168 million with $52 million in funds spread all over town. We got $52 million sitting in.
All right, we're going way off track, Jerry, right now. Hold on, let's stick with where we are. So
I don't think it's off track. I think it's important, but I think when you start trying to change the committee again, this will be at least the third attempt that I've been in. Okay, and they all fail. Okay, I'm not convinced that 11 members is the right number, 13 members is the right number, or 15 is the right number. The town seems to have done very, very well over the course of the last 40 years with 15 members. Now, yes, it's ebbs and flows. Some years are better than others, but look around what's going on in other towns, we seem to end up in the top 5 or 10 towns in the whole time Commonwealth about how we manage our finances.
okay, so are people asking that we extend a formal invitation to the town administrator and the select board chair for the February meeting? Is that what we're doing?
No, we have a vote on the floor, or a motion on the floor to vote, and you seconded it, right?
I mean, given
Wait a minute, stop. We got to bring some order to this. What is the motion, Mike?
The motion was for the FinCom to vote favorably in support of the citizen position, or the citizen, what is it?
The citizen petition.
Citizen petition to change to make the proposed bylaw change.
Okay, that's a motion by Mike Nicholson. Is there a second?
I'll second with can we revise that to say we revoke with the possibility of...
You don't have to do that.
You don't have to do that?
That's a given.
That's a given.
All right, so I second that.
Until it goes on the warrant. Okay, so there's a motion by Mike Nicholson, seconded by David Levine, to vote favorably as treating this as a citizen petition. It goes without saying that if we're able to reach an agreement with the select board prior to May, that can always be modified, revoked, et cetera. That goes without saying. So there's a motion and a second. So I'm going to ask for a vote now. David?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Joyce? Chuck?
No.
Carly?
No.
Brant?
I'm supportive, but I would like to, I like the idea of trying to pursue another option before town meeting, which makes the vote yes, no, a difficult vote. I'm supportive of what you're trying to do because you're trying to find a solution. I know it's supposed to be a yes, no answer. So I'm supportive of what you're trying to do, and I appreciate all your work, but I would like to hope that we can continue to find a solution without having to go to the town meeting.
I agree with that.
I understand. I'm just trying to bring this to resolution. So what's your vote, Brant? We have a motion and a second. I got to take a vote.
You scored it as a yes with my understatement.
Okay. Mr. DeVita?
Yes.
Okay. And Jerry?
No.
Okay, so that's 6-3, yes. I'm having a chair meeting next, yeah, go ahead, Al.
I got a problem.
What's the problem?
6 to 3, could be 5 to 4. This committee's divided. If putting it off a month, getting one last try at saying, can we, so dear Select Board, can we get together? If they refuse to talk to you, if they refuse to have a discussion, then I'd ask people to reconsider. But right now, I got a hard time going forward.
Exactly my point. Exactly my point, Al, is because if you don't ask them to consider, then you're going to deal with the consequences. And I don't want to deal with the consequences if I haven't had their input.
You've already made that point clear, Jerry.
Yeah, look, procedurally, we're getting very disorganized here. There's a 6 to 3 vote. The vote has been taken. Is there? It's done. I mean, unless somebody's going to make a motion to reconsider, it's done. You want it? We can. I will speak. I will raise the issue again at the chairman meeting. I will report back to everyone.
That's all we need to do.
Do people want them
I
invited?
appreciate that. I know you've done a lot of work to get to this point, and I appreciate you willing to take another bite of the apple for us.
Okay. All right. I'm going to move on now. I think we've beat this to death. Chris.
It might be a fact, I don't know. We have no balloons. Are you sure?
No promises.
I'm not talking about the CCTV project as a whole.
Okay.
I'm talking about the emergency ask that I had prior, which was for Pheno Field.
Okay, so just to be clear, none of this has gone through the capital meeting previously.
The Pheno Field piece?
Pheno Field has.
Yes.
Pheno Field has. Is that what we're talking about
That's what we're
tonight?
talking about tonight. We're not talking
That's
about,
all we're talking
about the May project.
Okay.
That's going to hold off.
Okay. Go ahead.
I know we already discussed with Capital the Pheno Field emergency issue, but I can't go forward with it unless I have funding sourced. I can't deficit spend or risk deficit spending. Is that worded correctly, Zach?
Sorry, that wasn't.
That's okay. But I did go ahead and fill out the proper forms. Well, anyway.
So what is it that, I mean, did I understand?
There was a discussion.
We're not taking any votes tonight. Okay, so what is it that you wanted to chat about tonight?
This is about securing the funding for Pheno Field to get Pheno Field taken care of.
You have insufficient funds in the budget right now?
I don't have any funds in the budget for Pheno Field.
Okay, but,
Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry, is someone?
I hate to short circuit this, but if it hasn't been to town meeting and approved for the funding, and unless we declare it an emergency, unforeseen,
It is an emergency.
there's no funding really available for us to consider this. Now, if he wants to take it out of his current budget, and then we can go to town meeting and replenish his budget in May, that is something we can take under consideration. But we just can't be delving into a $30,000 expenditure addition to someone's budget at this point in time in the budget process. And I don't think it's going to qualify as a Finance Committee emergency fund transfer.
Okay, we hear what it is first?
Al, would you like me to re-review the entire?
We've had ultimate
request?
emails. I've had tons of emails about it. It's been on the committee. It's been on the capital committee for, okay. It's about like, correct me if I'm wrong.
That's right, but it's here, Jerry. Can we hear from him?
Jerry, this has nothing to do with the entire CCTV project that was proposed. This is a separate issue.
I understand it. I read your email. I read the details. It's a request for $30,000 to put security cameras on the Pheno Field.
Right, because there is current vandalism taking place at that location. Now,
I understand
from the IT point of view, I am not looking for money to put cameras at Pheno Field for IT. I'm looking to do that for parks.
Okay, then
Okay.
I would suggest that the Parks Department should be coming before this committee in conjunction with you. And if you have it in your budget, that's fine. If they have it in their budget, that's fine. But the proper procedure is it has not been approved for funding from town meeting.
That's
And
correct.
that's the first step.
But we're already aware of that.
I know it's correct. I don't need to ask. That's the plan. So unless you want to call
I
a
thought
town
we weren't
meeting,
voting on anything tonight. What's the issue?
We're not voting on anything tonight, are we?
My understanding was that there was a discussion in October about this, and if it was an emergency, you do what you have to do, and if you're out of funding, you're not out of funding today. If you're out of funding today...
No, if I'm
you
not
gotta
funding
go
today, I
for it.
have problems.
So why are we talking about this today?
We're talking about this today because the funding that I do have is dedicated to the expenses that I already have.
I understand, but I thought...
But I
Mr.
can't...
Chairman, may I?
Yeah, please.
I definitely have an issue with giving authorization to a department to expend something that they did not budget it, and basically to give approval to deficit spend on a maybe that town meeting will backfill it. I definitely have an issue with
We have an emergency.
now.
He's here seeking a reserve fund transfer. That's your fund. You either approve it or you
All
don't.
right, that's my, okay.
Now, the fact that
Wait a minute, Jerry. Go ahead, Al.
we're being told we've never done this before. Highway heater,
can't do it. You can't do it.
Jerry, everyone please take their turn.
if you remember back when the highway department heater went, we did the same thing. We told Shelley, you got to fix it. Can you cover it in your budget? She said she didn't know. And we said, well, if the FinCom agrees to cover it and you can't, then you can go ahead. So we've done this a number of times. And the idea would be, come town meeting, we would replenish his account from there, or we just take it out of our reserve fund.
And if it doesn't, you have an illegal deficit.
No, because you can transfer it out of your reserve fund.
If you have it.
If you have the reserve fund funds in May, yes.
How much?
And if it's unforeseen.
Well, Jerry, with all due respect, vandalism typically is not foreseen or planned. But wait a minute, how much do we still have in our reserve?
You have 125.
125,000.
Is the committee super stingy with it? You should be.
Right.
You should be. My point is to say, his budget, you're talking about a highway department budget, they have repair accounts in there, they're not 100% dedicated to items. His is fully dedicated, so right now, he's telling you right out of the gate, if I'm gonna do this, I'm deficit spending. Right out of the gate, and you're saying, yes, go ahead and deficit spend. Saying, that's not a good practice. You have an emergency fund transfer that he's seeking here. Either you approve it or you deny it. If you deny it, he's forced to wait till May. That's it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, David.
I don't like what Jerry said. I mean, why is this under the IT budget, not under the Parks budget?
It's because it's an IT installation. Parks doesn't do
But
CCTV.
practicality is protecting the park.
Correct.
It can come out of either place.
It could come out of either, so which place has the most availability to fund this?
Parks Department.
I agree.
Look at the size of the budget.
Maybe we
It's not going to have 30,000 extra.
can I Marks Farben handle that?
No.
So nothing has been done yet on this? Carly and then Brant.
For clarification, because I'm now lost on the topic, what's the question, whose budget is it, and what are we trying to decide? Because I didn't get any pre-read on this, just trying to follow the path here.
Well, this wasn't even scheduled to be on tonight, but I was told at the last minute that Chris wanted to come up. And so we've already gone further astray than what I was anticipating. I don't like having items come up for meetings where I don't even know what the relief is that's being sought. So I'm a little concerned about where we are right now. But as I understand it, we're talking about a subset of the camera program that's been discussed to put cameras up in Pheno Field area. Allegedly, there have been vandalism and cost to repair, and there's a $25,000 to $30,000 camera piece to that they think would alleviate the problem that is not currently in the IT budget. There's a question about whether it should be an IT problem or a Parks problem, and whether they have the money, and whether the Finance Committee is agreeing to backstop this out of our $125,000 reserve as a so-called emergency. That's the landscape. Brant, your hands up?
They're going in the direction I was hoping to go, because I don't think it's not in either budget. There might be room ultimately in one, but it's not in either budget right now. But so discussing which cost center comes in or out of it wasn't planned in either one. I don't find a lot of interest in that. I'm far more interested in hearing more about the problem and what we're trying to solve. The accounting of it, I don't see the difference it makes if it's from the left pocket or right pocket. We could have to backstop either one of them if we decide to deal with the substantive issue, which we still haven't talked about. So I was hoping we could talk about the actual issue here and set aside which cost center we're talking about.
Go ahead, Chris.
I read the email, of course, but Chris is here, so maybe we can talk about it. Maybe, Chris, you can tell us more about what you're trying to do.
Go ahead, Chris.
I think I read it.
Wait, Jerry. Hold on. Go ahead, Chris.
So the issue is Jimmy Asum came to me after the new Pheno Field facility was built a few months after, while it was open, and they were having vandalism issues. And going back and forth on this topic, the easiest solution to deal with the vandalism issues was to put up a deterrent and to monitor the facility itself. I mean, it is a pool facility. It does have a pool play area. It does not have any cameras as it does yet. It's going to need them anyway for the one. And for the two, it'll help deter vandalism. That's all that came out of this.
Is there a lot of expense and damages that would help us understand the scale of the issue?
I'm probably not the best person to talk about that. The vandalism piece, I can tell you for this, that entire section of Pheno Field is brand new. It was just finished 6 months ago, about that. Other than that, all I can tell you is the information I have from Jimmy Asum and from the police department concerning vandalism and destruction of property.
And when we put that project together, there was never a mention of putting cameras into the project plan.
From what I understand, no.
I'm sorry, what was the cost incurred, Chris, for the damage?
I don't know the damage cost. All I know is what the cost is that I had to look at to find a solution.
Okay.
You'll have to talk to Jimmy Asum for damage cost. I don't know that.
Can I go?
Seems that we should know the materiality of the problem.
I say table it until we understand what the damages are and what the occurrences are from.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Jerry.
Hello. I think you need to bring the Parks Department in and have them explain the situation and let them look deeper into their budget and see if they want to take the steps to fix it. I don't think the Parks Director should just come singularly to another department and come up with a $30,000 expenditure. This has not been approved by town meeting. This money has not been approved. And so you start going outside, and you can't keep doing this. You just can't keep doing this. You got to stop.
David said something similar. So I don't know if we need a motion because there's really nothing that was before us to begin with. But I would, if you could ask Jim to join us at the next meeting.
I will talk to Jimmy.
Two issues, I guess. One is, does he have budgetary capacity? Two is quantifying the extent of the vandalism. How many times did it happen? What was the cost to repair? So people understand the materiality.
Al, would you like me to have him come before a subcommittee first, before regular committee?
It's probably a good idea.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Parks Commissioner should be in front of the Finance Committee, not the Parks Director. the Parks Commissioner, the chairman of the Parks Commission should be before the finance meeting.
I mean,
That's what needs to happen.
whoever the representative is of the Parks Department, I'm not going to
Yeah,
tell
my
them.
representative is the director. I don't have anyone
Yeah,
besides them.
they can, they can send me the chief, the deputy chief, whoever they consider to be their representative. I'm not getting into that. Okay, thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Okay, is there any other business before the esteemed committee? If not, is there a motion? What?
Can we put new business on the, as part of it?
Well, the problem with new business is you're begging for an open meeting problem.
No, I mean, just put it on the agenda for next meeting, or do I just have to do that?
I would prefer if you tell me specifically what the new business is. In case everyone has forgotten, I've asked that a week before any scheduled meeting, if you have a particular item that you want to address, just email me. I will put it on the agenda so we don't have any open meeting law issues. But I don't like the generic new business because that's just an invitation for trouble.
Exactly what I'll do that.
Yeah, okay. Motion?
Sorry.
Motion adjourned by David, second by Mike.
Yes.
Roll call.
Yeah, first I got to go this way. Go ahead. Yes.
Yes.
Joyce? Yes. Jerry? Motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Carly?
Yes.
Yes.
Brant? Robert?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thanks all.